With the 2021-2022 NBA season now well over the halfway point, things are starting to heat up, and fans can't wait to see which of their favorite teams will step up and secure a spot in the playoffs. But what hope is there for players like Zion Williamson, who was at one point said to be the future of basketball? And which other headlines should fans be aware of? For all this and more, stay tuned. First of all, let's look at how the future of Williamson may cripple the Pelicans. It's something New Orleans natives have been talking about for quite some time now, with their hope in Zion Williamson slowly fading from existence. For those of you who don't know, Williamson was drafted by the Pelicans back in 2019 as their #1 pick, and at the time, he was considered to be one of the greatest new talents of the league. The power forward had just come off a massive streak at Duke University after all, so when the Pelicans were able to draft him, many believed that a future championship was on the cards. The only other player to come out of the draft on the same level as Zion was Morant, who went on to be absorbed by the Memphis Grizzlies and quickly made a success of himself there. But a grand total of 3 years later, and the Pelicans are yet to take advantage of the man who everyone thought would be the messiah of New Orleans basketball. Why is this though? Well, Williamson is still recovering from a fractured 5th metatarsal as we speak, an injury that has required him to have 2 procedures performed on it in an attempt to get things healed and ready. And rather than having him cameo in the 2021-2022 season, the team appeared to be more concerned with his overall health, something we can appreciate, as a simple niggle on the court could now spell disaster for the power forward. But fans are somewhat concerned about the team's future. You see, it's been described as an all eggs in one basket scenario, and fans of the Pelicans don't want to see their team make a mistake that could destroy their path to the championship. Sure, Zion Williamson was the man to be relied on when he was drafted back in 2019, and there's no doubt that New Orleans wanted to build a team around the first pick, but you can't exactly do this if your leading player isn't on the court. Unlike his counterpart, Morant, Williamson has been struggling to make an impact in the league, and with injuries aplenty, this isn't surprising to hear. But fans are pleading for the Pelicans to drop their strategy of building around Zion in an attempt to make it big. The team has currently turned its season around without the help of the power forward after all, improving from a measly 3-16 to a rather impressive 24-21. But if the Pelicans keep on focusing on Williamson, who isn't even sitting on the bench at the moment, there's no doubt that things will begin to fall apart. Nothing stops the team from continuing this strategy of theirs when the man's all better. But until then, management should really be focusing on improving those players that are currently turning the season around. This is especially the case considering just how mysterious the future of Zion Williamson is at the moment. Remember, the power forward hasn't addressed the public in almost a year, which shows a total lack of respect for the fans and team. That's not all that remains a mystery about Zion Williamson though. The young man recently drew copious amounts of criticism for his decision to move back to Portland where he could heal his bones in the comfort of his own home. According to former teammate turned broadcaster JJ Redick, this was a strange decision to make, as it really showed the lack of investment from the power forward in his team. Just because you're injured doesn't mean you can't be involved in the day-to-day antics of your team after all. An injury doesn't get in the way of you attending practice and seeing what's being worked on over the weeks leading up to the playoffs. And that's not even mentioning the motivation that his appearance could have on his fellow players, who no doubt feel set aside by the team who still do everything to keep Zion happy. In other words, it doesn't sound like Williamson wants to be playing for the Pelicans after all, regardless of how bad his injury actually is. So questions remain as to how effective Zion will be on the court in the future while he lacks motivation right now. Experts in the field of sports physiology have also indicated that his tendency to get injured may have a lot to do with his current weight, but since a skinny Zion won't be as effective as he was in his prior form, this is a difficult decision to make. Suffice to say, the Pelicans should really be looking for a way out. In other basketball news, Brittany Griner has been detained in Russia, and it goes without saying, but fans are somewhat concerned for her safety, considering everything that's been going on in the country. For those of you who've been living under a rock, Russia decided to invade Ukraine a couple weeks ago and is now involved in an explosive war with the neighboring nation. According to reports, Russia invaded Ukraine after the nation made a pledge to join NATO, with President Vladimir Putin believing that Russia actually has a right to the country based on the history of the neighboring nations. And while more and more Russians have been arrested for protesting the war effort, Brittany Griner isn't one of them. She was actually detained over alleged drug charges and has yet to secure her freedom despite fans pleading for this to take place. And now that the United States has imposed drastic sanctions on Russia as a result of their war effort, there's no doubt whatsoever that Griner is in some trouble. It wouldn't be the first time a nation has threatened another country's citizens in an attempt to bring sanctions to an end after all. And with the ruthless invasion of Ukraine, we honestly wouldn't put anything past Russia at this point. As of right now, Griner's whereabouts have yet to be shared by the Russian authorities, with her last social media post being on the 16th of last month. It must also be said that Griner is a member of the LGBTQ+ community, which which Russia is against. So is Joe Biden's organization doing anything to get Griner out of Russia right now? Well, according to reports, the American president is doing everything he can at the moment to secure her transfer to the United States. She was apparently found with cannabis oil in her travel bag, though, with Russian officials also accusing her of a plethora of smuggling charges. In other words, this is going to be a pretty tough ask, especially since Russia is busy stepping on the rights of another country altogether at the moment, and we have no doubt that the Kremlin will at some point enter into negotiations with America, in which they suggest the exchange of Griner is for less restrictive impositions against them. Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, who represents Griner's hometown of Houston, Texas, has been pretty vocal on the release of the basketball icon. According to her, there is a need for Griner to be immediately released and for her to receive the help of the United States to demand and facilitate that release. Since diplomatic relations between the U.S. and Russia are at an all-time low, though, the success of this release may be somewhat of a fantasy. And since Americans don't like to negotiate with terrorists, as they would say, we have no idea whether a negotiation regarding sanctions would ever actually take place. As of right now, all we can really do is hope for the best. Last but not least, let's talk about Coach Howard's suspension. For those of you who don't know, Juwan Howard of the Michigan Wolverines has just been suspended for 5 whole games, being the remainder of the current season. On top of this, the man has also been fined $40,000 for his actions a few days ago, in which he hit Wisconsin assistant coach Joe Krabenhoft in the face. He wasn't the only one facing punishment for the unexpected fight that broke out after Sunday's game, though. Wisconsin coach Greg Gard has also been fined $10,000 for what has been termed a violation of the conference's sportsmanship policy, but he was luckily able to avoid suspension for his actions. Michigan forwards Terrence Williams and Musa Diabate have also been suspended for a game because of their participation in the event, with the same going for Wisconsin guard Jacoby Neath. According to the Big Ten, athletes and coaches are supposed to stand for the highest level of sportsmanship, so the punishment in question was both necessary and warranted. Quite a crazy scenario, if we do say so ourselves. And there you have it, everything you need to know about the world of basketball at the moment. What do you think of the Pelicans' reliance on Williamson, though? And what do you think should be done about Griner's detainment? Be sure to let us know in the comments section down below.